Hello, I'm Eric Matisik, co-chair of Denver Startup Week. Last year, we were able to bring the global audience together for Denver Startup Week, and this year, we're excited to welcome that global audience back as we celebrate and showcase the best of entrepreneurship that the Denver ecosystem in Colorado has to offer, in Denver and beyond. There are lots to explore this week, but most importantly, we're excited that you're joining us. We have nearly 50 sponsor companies who contribute to make Denver Startup Week possible. Let's show our love for these companies today and all week long. Thanks to our headquarters and title sponsor, Amazon, and our title sponsors whose leadership makes this week come to life, Capital One Cafe, the Downtown Denver Partnership, Fluid Truck, Hotel Engine, and WeWork, and our track sponsors who've made all the great content you're hearing today possible, which includes our founder track sponsor, Kickstart, our growth track sponsor, Friday Health Plans, developer track sponsor, Quizlet, product track sponsor, Palantir, design track sponsor, Battery 621 and the Public Works, people track sponsor, Exactly, and the spotlight event sponsor, Strat Labs. Our headline event sponsors are bringing this excitement to the entire week. Thank you to B-Side Fund, Colorado Public Radio, Comcast, Coors Brewing Company, Denver Pavilions, Entrepreneurship at the University of Denver, Gusto, JP Morgan Chase, Method, Moss Adams, Pi Insurance, Promontory Mortgage Path, Red Bull Basement, Southwest, Tattered Cover, and the VF Venture Foundry. Finally, thank you to our sponsors and member sponsors who are listed on the screen, and thank you for your support of Denver Startup Week. Now, let's get to it.
Hello, Denver. We are so excited to be here. We're excited to tell you a bit more about the Foundry for Builders program and to be a part of the Denver startup ecosystem. We moved our headquarters to Denver in the last year, and we're excited to call Denver home. Foundry for Builders. Essentially, we're offering our end-to-end Foundry solution that is deployed to major governments and enterprises worldwide, to early and growth stage companies so that they can build their business on Foundry from day one.
Hi everyone, welcome to Denver Startup Week. My name is Ryan Margolis and I'm the Product Track Chair and member of the Denver Startup Week Organizing Committee. Thank you for joining us for the 10th anniversary of Denver Startup Week. At DSW, we strive to make all of our sessions a space where attendees can connect, learn, and grow, regardless of age, gender identity, gender expression, race, ability, or sexual orientation. A special thank you to our sponsors for their support in helping us to keep DSW free and accessible for all. Thank you for joining us. Have a great week.
Hello, everyone. My name is Carnella Jassen, and I am very happy to be here with you today to talk about the Product Validation Bootcamp. So I'm going to go over to my presentation and we can get started. All right, here we go. So hello, inventors and innovators. Thank you so much for joining. Wanted to make sure that you guys can see my screen pretty well. I'm going to just chime in with my assistant to make sure that we're good there before we get started. Tiffany, how are we doing?
Great.
Okay, great. And I'm going to turn my screen off so we can focus on the presentation at hand. Just bear with me for a second here. Can you still see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so we will also have a few links in the chat area. So feel free to utilize those resources. We will have a guide that you can work along or walk along with as we are moving through the presentation here and the viable product idea. In that guide, you will have the opportunity to go slide by slide, make notes, some revelations, insights on what sparks your ideas, sparks your mind, as we go through the presentation. We'll also have something called a viable product checklist. And that checklist is really a really powerful takeaway where you have an opportunity to kind of validate your idea, going through the process of how you actually validate your idea in depth. And so it's going to ask a lot of really important questions to help you to move and navigate through the entire process so that at the end, you'll have a great idea of how and what it takes to validate a product before putting it out there into the market space. So again, I am happy to have you guys here with me. I also like to make sure that you guys make sure to follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, any of the social media outlets. We'd love to have you join our newsletter and also receive a free downloadable of my free ebook. Thank you so much. So here we go. So in this particular webinar, we're talking about how to validate your idea. And so given that, what gives me the right to speak to you guys today? Like, who am I and why am I even here? And what are the credentials that allows me to speak with you today? So I'm the CEO and founder of Mind Catalyst. It's a design and venture studio. So we focus on software and hardware for our clients, large and small. And so we go from digital to physical and specializes in humanity-centered types of design thinking principles and helping our clients to define and develop new products and help them to looking at how they shape and solve real problems in the world. I help startups, small businesses, change makers, Fortune 500 companies, solve complex business challenges with innovation and design technology solutions. My goal through sharing my experiences and expertise with you is to bring about great, well-designed products to the market that are meaningful and relevant and also profitable. After years of mentoring and building my own firm, I've developed a framework that can allow folks to take their idea to the next level. Take your idea out of your mind, out of your head, out of your design team, and really bring that idea to market. But before doing that, of course, we want to make sure that it's tested, it's validated, it's vetted, so that you can have a great opportunity to scale that product to success. So, and I'm also, before working with startups and nonprofits and other multinational companies, I've worked with Health South, Eli Lilly, Rio Tinto. I've worked with other companies like AT&T. I've worked with a number of larger firms around the country and outside the country as well. So that's the validation, that's the credentials that you need to know that I am here and I know exactly what I'm talking about. So here we go. So, what does it take to build a successful product? So how many of you have struggled with, many ideas that you might have in your mind about creating a new product idea? We have so many, issues that go on in this world today, particularly in the era of COVID. We've moved away from the nice to haves in terms of products, and we're moving more to a needs to have. Like, 2/3 of the population spends money on education, food, healthcare, housing, even financial services. And so there's a lot of necessities in that, not nice to have, but more needs to have, human needs to have. And so, many of our ideas may revolve around those types of product ideas. And so if you've had an opportunity to have some ideas around these types of verticals, it may be also a good idea to actually explore the idea of bringing that product to market. Do you have a way to validate those ideas before putting it out to the market? And many times we have tons of ideas that we want to bring about, but we don't know how to actually bring those ideas to the market space before launching it. And so we certainly don't want to just put something out there without validating it first and then spend time, money, and energy on these things before putting it out there. So we want to make sure that we've done a proper vetting session before doing so. And so the two concepts that we're going to discuss during this presentation is design thinking and minimal viable product. So both of these concepts, very powerful within their own right? But the combination between the two, as far as I'm concerned, is where the vitamins are for a powerful launch, for a really powerful idea. So going through the process of both of these particular methodologies will help you to validate your ideas in a way that can, either it's going to be something that you're going to go ahead and launch, or it's going to be something that you have no validation and you're looking at, okay, maybe this is not a good idea that I can move forward with. But, the point is, even if at the end of the day, it's not something that you move forward with, you would have actually spent less time, money, and energy on validating that before putting money into this and putting it out to the market space. So this is a great way to validate ideas. So design thinking is bringing together empathy, experimentation into the product and software in terms of software or even ideas. It may not even necessarily be a software application. It can actually be even a service that you're thinking about doing, or it may be a hardware opportunity, not necessarily technology. It can really be for any type of idea, right? And so, but these particular methodologies were kind of seeped into a product technology space. However, they're very functional and work very well with service-based businesses, as well as other types of businesses that are non-technology related. And I know because I've actually worked through the same process with many of my clients over the years who are both tech clients and those who are non-tech clients. And so they do work very, very well. So it allows you to anticipate what future customers may want from the very beginning of the product ideation process. So before you put down a single dollar towards the production, you would have come up with a validation process to know whether somebody actually wants to part with money to move forward with your product idea or not. So this is a bare essentials. This is what's really necessary to help you to decide, what's going to be a solid idea in terms of profitability. So we want to avoid as an entrepreneur or as a corporation or an organization, adding unnecessary bloat to their concept or things that are not necessarily needed. When you're talking about a minimal viable product, it is really that. It's what's minimal. What is the bare necessities that people need in order to validate if your product idea actually makes sense to them or not. Okay. So the $1 million question here is is that we're going to be using two principles here to create the product that people actually want, right? So you want to make sure that, whenever you have an idea for a product, you want to make sure that, you have a waiting audience, waiting fan base that is, really, interested in the product that you're actually going to be producing or the product you're going to be putting out to the market space. Nobody wants to, launch a product to an audience that doesn't exist, right? And so this process of design thinking and minimal viable product, short for MVP, will help you to validate that before doing so. So there's a series of questions that we can walk through in order to validate the ideas you have and get it ready for a product launch. For example, we do this by starting at the beginning of the focus, by the beginning and focusing on the most important aspects of your business and your users. And you'll see there in the guide, lots of really rich questions that you can work along with to kind of help you to tease out some of the ideas. I think in the guide there, we have listed like what is the problem that your product is starting with? So you want to start there with what problem are you solving? So that really helps with the customer discovery by identifying what problem are you solving first. Okay. So what is the main benefit of the idea of your product for your audience? That's really one of the main questions that we want to ask. What is the main pain point that your audience, your customers are, grappling with, right? So you want to make sure that your product idea or your service idea or your just idea in general is a perfect fit solution for the problem that your intended customers is struggling with at the moment. So you need to isolate what is your product and how that will be most served by your users. So before you worry about marketing, turnover operations, and things of that nature, you need to identify what your application, what your product does that others that does not. And this will help you to stay on track. Okay, so we isolate this feature by targeting the problem. This is where we really focus on the design thinking portion of the methodology, right? So we pay more attention to this area. So put yourself in the shoes of your user. That's essential, right? We want to make sure that we are walking in the shoes, feeling that pain of that pebble in your shoe of your users, right? Making sure that we have empathy for what they're struggling with. We have empathy for what they're dealing with, because once you have that empathy, you're able to really bring the solution to bear as it fits for that particular customer base. A big mistake I see entrepreneurs making is mapping out what they think the biggest users' problems are without really knowing for sure, right? And so they may think, well, I think it's a good idea because I like the idea or it makes sense to me. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're able to then sell that idea to other people, or that other people are also sharing in the problem that you're also seeing. So you need to do that by validating that with other users. So again, it's not about you, right? It's really about your users, right? You may think it's a wonderful idea, you may love it yourself, but again, that does not necessarily mean that it's the best fit for your intended users. Once you identify the problem, you need to look at how your concept or your idea solves the problem. While focusing on this, you'll also see that the problem is, for your target audience is one that is shared with other people. So going out and talking to prospective users, making sure that you're getting the feedback and input from other customers or potential customers who may see this solution as being your product idea as one that's a great market fit for them. Users would also look at what's beneficial for them as they understand what their needs are, what their needs aren't. I mean, that's why it's really important to make sure that you engage users in this customer discovery process so that you can then garner all the information that you need to decide, what's going to be the best route to take in terms of the solution of the product. And also, while you're doing this research, you're also looking at, how would customers pay for this product, right? And so, and how much would they pay for this product? So, it's part of that whole the customer discovery, looking at, what customers want, what the problems are that they're looking to solve, and then how much money would they pay or, to address this issue for them, to solve their issue. So again, the product has to have a market fit solution. So it must fit the problem versus the solution for the particular client at hand. So how much time will your users need to spend on, solving this particular problem? How much money do they need to, would they be willing to part with to make sure that this is the right solution for them? So people aren't afraid to pay for things that solve problems for them, right? I mean, there's no shortage for somebody willing to pay for a solution to solve a problem for them. People are not going to pay for something that's really, it's not going to be something that's going to be a solution for them at all. So when you look at things like Apple, Nike, or Tiffany's of the world, people pay a premium price because those particular products actually work. So when when you isolate this, you can actually pinpoint how valuable your product or your solution, meaning a service, could be, and how appropriate it is in terms of the pricing for that particular value of the product or idea. The more often they see or use this particular product as a solution to their problem, typically they're willing to pay for the money to make sure that they're solving their particular problem. So again, we want to hone in on making sure that your particular service or your product idea is unique enough and then also comparable to other products that are out in the market. So once you understand the necessity in terms of what types of features or functionality are necessary to make your product stand out, then you will have an MVP. So again, you want to make sure that I have an idea for this particular product. Talk to other people about this particular product idea. Talk to them about from a point of view of a product problem or a problem solution, meaning your idea, your product, your service is the solution to this particular user or customer or potential customer's pain point. Does those two match? Is there a solution fit that matches the problem of that particular customer base? Okay, so that will help you. And also, does it also solve the problem in a unique way? Is the way in which you are solving the problem unique given what other products or services that are out there that are similar in nature? Okay. So MVPs are always well designed and they're very simplistic, right? So because again, it's called minimal viable product for a reason. So we want to make sure that this product is very simplistic in terms of how we're going to solve and be the solution to the problem that customers are facing. Okay, so there needs to be a balance in terms of, what the problem is and how the product solves the problem. So we're also looking at as well, making sure that we're not putting too many features, functionality, too many offers in the service if it's a service-based business or a service-based idea, because it gets people confused, right? And so the more simplistic your idea is, the more simplistic your solution is to the problem, it's an easier, faster way, agile way for it to be a resolution or a solution to the problem. And then people are able then to take that idea, see it as a solution, and run with it. Now, of course, after you build your MVP, you're able to add to it and to enhance it over time, right? Many people forget that, companies or apps, software like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn even, didn't look anything like they look today, right? But what made them grow and evolve over time is feedback, input from real customers like you and I, so that's what made them look the way they look and function the way they function today. Of course, initially, they were very primitive in nature in terms of their look and feel, but over time, it moves from an MVP up to a first release, and then second, then third, and so on and so on. So this is why the MVP is very important, because you don't want to start with the entire, all the features and functionality known to mankind, because that's going to cost you more time, money, energy. That's not something you want to put into without having first vetted the idea and have a proof of concept. Okay. So again, we're talking about the fact that the best MVPs are very simple, they're beautiful, but they're very concise. There's not a lot of bells and whistles. Oftentimes I work with clients, and clients are expecting or wanting to put every feature, functionality known to mankind in a product, and it's just I discourage them from doing so because it is going to cost them more money, first of all, but second of all. And more importantly, it's just not necessary, right? When you want to taste Haagen-Dazs ice cream, you start with vanilla, right? And so you move from vanilla onto all the other flavors that you tend to like. And if you like the quality of the creamery of the ice cream, then you move on to the others. So you don't start with your most complicated from the very beginning. You start with the more simplistic way of looking at the product idea first and move on from there. So again, we had this notion around, I don't know how many of you remember, Mac, well, the wars between Mac versus Microsoft Windows back in the day, right? So, either you were a Mac person or you're an Apple person. I'm sorry, the Android person, Windows person. So today it's the same thing, right? You have typical people who are, they're just more inclined to operate, or they have a more affinity to Mac products versus Android products. And so, and it's a pretty hardcore group of people, right? I mean, you have your staunch Mac people versus Android folks, right? And then you may have your Google Pixel folks and things like that. But, some people just gravitate to other products versus one product versus another. And so sometimes you really can't help but change that, or even, entice one to go cross over to the other. That's usually kind of impossible to do. And so, I'm of the belief that no idea is, one that you just can't do because it's already been done. I just don't follow that rule of thumb. Many clients come to me and say, well, I had this idea about this particular product idea or service idea, but it's already been done. Well, that's fine, because that's a wonderful idea, because if it's already been done, it's a proof of concept that people have already seen that this is a viable idea for this problem that they have, right? But they haven't done it the way you're going to do it. So I discourage people to think that, oh, well, that's already been done, or it's been exhausted. It hasn't, it's just not enough. It's just no room for me out there in terms of how I want to do it. I just don't agree with that. I think that, everybody's idea in terms of how they want to present their product idea or their software or their hardware or their cookie company or their e-commerce website, or their service-based businesses, if it's unique enough, again, based on your own value system, your own principles, your own branding, that it could necessarily be a new viable option for someone else within the market space. And then there is room for you, even if it's 5, 6, 10, 20%. It's in a big enough market, you're still going to be solving a big problem for many, many, many people in a different way that is more relevant or more conducive for this particular user niche that may or may not have been, needs have been not have been met with the other 70, 30, 40% of the population or the market. So it is worth trying that out and testing that out and validating that idea still for that particular market space, if that's something you are interested in getting into. So don't let that discourage you. So again, there needs to be a balance in terms of when you're developing any type of product. It's essential. So, we don't, so again, it has to be intuitive, yet beautiful, effective. It doesn't have to be perfect, though. It does not have to be perfect. There needs to be some sort of balance, but we're not talking about something in perfection here. We start by narrowing down the focus and picking a small number of features, meaning your MVP, and then you're going to just execute that, right? Now, if it's a software application, you can use a prototyping tool. There's tons of prototyping tools out there, like Envision, Sketcher, things like that. You can find somebody on Fiverr that can help you to develop that. If it's more of a service-based business, you will have a small presentation to show them what the services are, and ask someone, would this particular service be something that would be viable to solve some of your business solutions or business problems that you're dealing with. If it's a physical product idea, then you would have somebody do a CAD drawing, maybe a 3D modeling CAD drawing of it, again, using something like Fiverr to help you to design that, and put that in front of some of the users to see if that makes sense to them in terms of their problem and this particular model being the solution. So there's ways to do MVPs, minimal viable product prototypes, that you can actually show a user or a future customer or a future even partner or even a future funder, angel funding or VC. This is my product idea. And then have people actually look at that, engage with it, and if it's a prototype of it, to see if it actually makes sense based on their problem that they're looking at solving. So again, we're talking about quantity versus quality. So I talked earlier about minimum viable product and very few features. So again, if it's a service-based business that you're looking to launch in terms of your idea, don't bring down, don't have a whole bunch of offers within the service, right? Just have one service, that's kind of the major pain point that addresses the major pain point for your intended customers, and look at, okay, does this make sense to you based on what your problems are that you're looking to solve? If it's a physical product, a model of that product, some sort of pictorial model of that product with very few features, very vanilla, think Haagen-Dazs vanilla ice cream versus, all the other wonderful combination flavors, that is also part of the brand. Very basic. Does this make sense based on your problem that you're solving? First, of course, you have identified the problem, right? You have identified the problem, you have vetted the problem with various users. Now you're looking at, here's the solution, meaning my product, my idea, my service, my product, my hardware, and crossing the referencing that with the customer to, again, part of the customer discovery process. So again, it's better to have, 1 to 2 features, very well thought out, rather than 30 poorly thought out solutions. And so if you have over let's say 10 features, you should take a hard look at them and make sure you kind of narrow it down to that 1 to 3, no more than 3 really, but 1 to 3. But really making sure that you're really hitting those key pain points for the users as well. So give an example of, so again, we're just looking at some entrepreneurs who've had some other issues around this area. So I've worked with many entrepreneurs over the years, and oftentimes it's hard to get them to narrow it down to 1 to 3 functionality and features. That's a really difficult task, probably one of the hardest tasks of my job every day. Because it's like, well, no, we have to have this piece in there also. And it's like, well, actually you don't. Or even if it's a service, it's hard to get them to narrow down to one service as opposed to adding all these other features and also offers. But you really got to get it down because, again, too many options, too many features confuses the user. And it just doesn't, it kind of clouds the pain point. And you just don't want to do that. You want it to be as simple as possible. You want it to be a shoe-in terms of the problem and the solution fit. So you want to make sure that you have less is more in this case. Oops. So the first iteration of your product is not meant to be the most perfect, right? And I've heard someone say that if your product, when you first put your idea out into the world, and if it's perfect, you've already missed the mark, right? So it's not intended to be perfect on its first chance out of the gate. So you want to make sure that you have an opportunity to actually iterate on it and build upon the success of functionality, of customer feedback and input as you go along. Again, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, the way they look today did not look this way when they first came on the market. And what was helpful was the input from users on a regular basis to help to shape and to contour what best customer experience we all wanted to have. And so then that happens, that evolves over time. So again, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but with every implementation and design, stick with the tried and true design and functionality practices in order to cut down on the cost. So, having an MVP does not mean that that's the only thing that you'll do. This is this is just a starting point. This is just getting it out of your head, out of your mind, getting it in front of a group of people who get it, who says, hey, that solves my problem. I want to see more of this, or I definitely would love to see or have this as part of my solution that I'm dealing with on a regular basis. So we've come to the conclusion here of the presentation. I hope all of you have been following through with your guide. So I think we have some time to ask some questions. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here and get on camera to address some questions. I also want to make sure that you are aware, again, and remind you of the checklist that is also in the chat as well. So if you have any questions, please feel free to enter them in the chat, and I'll be happy to address them. So I see here that we do have the MVP. We do have the your links in the chat as well. So again, feel free to download those. We can go through a few of those now. Let's see. Tiffany, do we have any questions?
No, just wanted to make sure that everyone's ready for the Q&A session with Carnella. We'd love to hear your questions, and I see that we do have a question here from Doug. What are some of the most effective early stage customer outreach methods have you seen?
Yes, so I've seen really, in terms of outreach for early stage, people have done, events. People have done, particularly now with COVID. I mean, I've seen a lot of people doing a lot of events on LinkedIn Live, Instagram Live, Facebook Live, have people to do demos for their particular products in terms of early stage customer outreach. People have had communities set up where people can join communities, and as relates to their products, they can be a part of the community, answer questions. People can be a part of something greater than the product itself. So it kind of shapes, has an opportunity to shape a community on its own. I've also seen people give various types of discounts to people for of course referrals, or giving people an opportunity to share their stories about the product idea as well. Also some educational elements as well, making sure that people are able to learn about the product online in lives, in those communities. There's various ways of which to reach out to people, but I've seen a lot of those different options in early startups. Any other questions?
Great. No problem, Doug. Carnella, why don't you go ahead and show them the guide on the checklist and what they're going to get out of the checklist?
Sure. Cool. Let's see.
This way, when they have their questions, when they download it, they can ask them now.
Yeah, let's just go back. Let me just pull that up. Second.
And guys, check out the links in the chat. You have a free download of Carnella's MVP checklist, and also our link to join our Mind Catalyst tribe, where you can subscribe to our monthly newsletter.
Yeah, tell them a little bit about the newsletter, Tiff, while I get this up.
Great. Well, the newsletter is actually Carnella's highlight reel, basically, of what everything Mind Catalyst, everything that Carnella's got going on, her speaking events, some of the funding opportunities that we're aware of that we just want to bring to our audience. And that goes out monthly.
Yes. So here, the checklist. So again, the guide I hope was helpful for you to kind of go through if you had any questions along the way. As we talked about minimum viable product, as we talked about design thinking, and we talked about testing out with a few users. And again, let me just go back to that in terms of a few users. I typically have my clients test it out with at least 50 to 100 users, or expose about 50 to 100 users to their product idea or their service idea. You want to have as many people as possible to chime in and give their feedback, such that you are able to take that feedback and start evaluating and massaging, what's coming out of what people are seeing. 5 people, 10 people doesn't really cut it. You really need as many people looking at your idea, looking at your potential product and problem fit as possible, so that you can get as much feedback as possible. So it's essential to get as many people as you can. So here, the checklist, it's kind of mapped out with the various sections. We have the research section, of course. So that's the very first stage of which we start looking at, okay, I have this idea, where am I going to go with this idea? And so it looks at, understanding, kind of that customer discovery from the very beginning, and looking at the problem that you're solving. What problems do they have, right? But first, based on your idea, what problem are you solving for those customers? And who are those customers, right? And so doing some research around that. And we have a list of questions here as to, to help you to kind of gauge that and to come up with some really good areas for research. The second phase of that, or question in this area for this checklist is theorizing. So we want to make sure that you're able to, now that you've identified the customer, now it's time to look at, to kind of comparing the problems and the product idea that you actually have as the solution. So we've actually outlined several questions to help you to do that as part of this checklist. Okay. And then in the third part of this process is testing, of course. This is really essential. So you want to go out and talk to as many potential customers, as I mentioned before, as possible. And again, I tended to err on the side of 50 to 100 as part of that customer discovery session, to really look at, as many people as you can, to test this idea out with as many people as you can. Here it says 5 subjects to 50, but again, I say 50 to 100, because the more, the better, because you're able to have, the more data you have to actually go through and massage and to ensure that the idea that you are thinking about makes sense with the most people. It could really be resonating with a larger popularity of people. Then you're able to have that test data that you need to go forward with. Developing it, maybe getting some funding for it if that's what you're wanting to do, or even bootstrapping. I think for me, bootstrapping is the best way to go than getting funding. I'm more, even though I am an angel investor, and I work a lot with a lot of VCs, I'm very much partial to bootstrapping as long as you can. I mean, I would say bootstrap as long as you possibly can before going after venture capital funding. Again, you'll earn or own most of your company, and so by the time a VC will be a part of that, and I think it's just a better way to go. And the next phase of that, of course, is after you testing is validating, right? And so looking at that feedback, making sure that you have all the right feedback from your initial customers, and then taking it one step further and just kind of restructuring, editing, tweaking the idea based on feedback, right? But you have to evaluate feedback, right? So not all feedback is great feedback, right? So if you have 10% of the people saying that, I don't like where this button is, versus, 90% of the people being okay with that, then of course that particular feedback is not going to be valid, right? And so you want to make sure that you're evaluating the type of feedback that you're getting in a very pragmatic way that makes sense to you. Of course, it has to be unbiased, right? You can't just look at, what you like, right? You have to kind of base the feedback on what the users are saying as opposed to what you want it to be. So be careful with that. And then, of course, let's get to work. Once the MVP is out, you validate ideas, it's time to now take it to the next level, right? And so start iterating and bringing out new releases of the product, right? And so that you're able to move things forward and have some progression towards release 1, 2, and so on and so on. Tiff, do you have any other questions at all?
Yes, we do have a question actually from Cindy. Cindy asks, best options to get customer feedback.
Yeah. So again, it depends on the type of business you have. What type of business you have, Cindy?
She says product, healthcare.
Yeah. So again, it really, that doesn't say a whole lot, but I'll do my best here, but if it's a physical product, it typically, the best way to do that is to have I would have a web page or a landing page where you have idea stage. Yes, that's perfect. So I would have a landing page and then have people give them a very just give them an idea of what the product is and invite people to come into a testing space. So even if it's an idea stage, that's fine. Again, I would have people to sign your NDA. That's number one, right? You got to have people to sign your NDA to protect your idea. So I have people do that in every, before we start any testing at all, with even discussions about someone's idea, we have them sign an NDA. And so you have them to test the idea in a private session. You can do something like we're doing right now in a Zoom session, right? And where you can invite people to be a part of the testing, where you can share the idea. Everyone's already vetted. They've already signed your NDA. They're now invited into your Zoom call or meeting. And then you can have them to go through your idea there, right? And you can have them to vote. Maybe they can raise their hand with the Zoom features, what features, functionality they like or dislike. They can put a thumbs down, thumbs up, things like that, when you can have them engaged in that. So I would do something like that. It's a private Zoom. It's your private Zoom. I would record it. I would even have people to come in and voice, how the idea is resonating with them. Does this make sense? What is your biggest problem? Does this particular idea in the healthcare space solve that? Is it a perfect fit for your problem that you're looking to solve? Does this make sense for that problem? And if not, what aspect of this product idea that I have, doesn't make a sense to you? Where doesn't it fit right? And I think that's where, you start to unravel some of the yarn, right? So if they say, well, I like this idea that you have for healthcare, but that's where the vitamins are going to come in, right? This but, like where is a differentiator that doesn't make sense to them, and where can it make better sense to them if it were changed in some way? And so that's where you're going to then get some really viable ideas and viable information to help you to tweak your idea that makes better sense for the customer base that you're looking to solve problems for. Because oftentimes you think, here's the solution, right? But then when you get out there and start talking to people, then it becomes something else. So you have to be open to change. You have to be open to this idea that I thought was going to be a perfect fit may not necessarily be what I thought it was going to be, but just be open and just be flexible, right? In evaluating the feedback and opportunities that also come out of the feedback. I hope that helps. No problem. She said, is the process to evaluate feedback the same as B2B? Yes, it is. I mean, feedback evaluation is really based on, the main thing is just not to get caught up in what you want, right? As the creator of this particular product or service, right? It's really about just taking away, that you're the idea person, right? And you're looking at everyone's feedback unbiased, you have no stake in the game. You're just really looking at it, and really, I would take myself out of it. I would probably have somebody else do that, so that you're not tempted. Because sometimes, someone gives feedback, and it may be like, something that's you might be too close to your idea. Sometimes, I'm not saying you are, but I'm saying a lot of people are too close to their idea, and when someone gives an opinion about it, they get like defensive, when the user, the customer, the potential customer may have a really valid point, right? In terms of it not truly being a market fit to the real problem that people are really having. Or they may have missed the mark entirely on what problem is really being solved here, right? And so you may want to remove yourself from it and have somebody else come in as well. So that just to make sure that it's a balance in terms of perspectives and in terms of evaluating other people's feedback on your idea. Sure.
Awesome. Okay, we had one more question from Doug, who asked, what stage does a product company or idea get to before bootstrapping, finding funding, or developing the product? And how much data or feedback do you need?
Well, it really depends on you, right? I think for me, bootstrapping versus funding, as far as I'm concerned, funding should be the way down the line. It should just be way down the line. Your first and foremost objective, it should be bootstrapping the business, the product, the service for as long as possible, right? And then also develop, and I wouldn't even say even developing the product, right? You want to develop the product in the minimal viable state, right? You don't want to develop it fully out, of course, because you may need funding to do that, right? But you can also utilize the income that's coming in for the product as you're bootstrapping to fund other releases of the development of the product. So that's how I would do that. Funding the product, I would say doing that at a point where it's, you've outgrown the bootstrapping. The bootstrapping is, you're busting at the seams in terms of, people and resources are being exhausted, where you just have so many customers, just nothing you can do to get around that, but to fund, to expand. But if you're not gotten to that place, I see a lot of businesses, to me, where they fail is, they get a few hundred customers and they're like, okay, yeah, let's go get funding. And it's like, you're not at that capacity point yet. You've not even, you're not even remotely gotten there yet, right? There's still room for bootstrapping to slightly improve upon the product, invest back into the product itself, right? Capture more data, more feedback, more input from users before then looking for funding. And then when they do start getting funding, they have really sold a lot of their own market share of their product. And for what reason? They could have bootstrapped a little bit longer and made a smarter investment decision. And oftentimes that's not done. Okay. Any other questions?
That was great. Thanks, Doug, for that question. Thanks, Cindy.
Yeah.
Guys, don't forget to download the free ebook, 5 Ways to Validate. And also sign up for our newsletter, join the MK tribe. That was an awesome presentation, Carnella.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate your time, and wonderful meeting all of you. And I hope you got a lot out of this. We are also giving away my ebook as well to help you again with the whole process of, kind of validating your idea, bootstrapping. If you have any other questions on, funding or outside funding, we do, again, as Tiffany mentioned, we do share funding sources that we come in contact with in our newsletter. We also share things that are happening in the product space, and would love to share that with you guys. Thank you so much for having me. All right. Thanks so much, Doug. This has been great. Yeah, see you guys next year. Hopefully we'll do this in person. I'd love to do this in person where we can actually get down to business, maybe have more time and to, work through, bring your ideas to the session live and we can actually work through them together and pan them out as a group. I would love to do that next year at Denver Startup. So thank you so much and see you there. Yes, in person would be great. All right. So is Tom going to sign us out or?
I think you've still got a few minutes to chat.
Okay.
Anyone, we've still got, let's see. We've still got Augusta and Tyler in the room. If you guys have any questions for Carnella before we go.
Yeah, love to And also, Augusta and Tyler, what kind of business do you have? What kind of ideas are you thinking about, and for whom? Oh, that's great. Manufacturing pet products. Fantastic. So in that case, so where are you thinking in terms of the testing out with real users? Are you thinking like maybe, you know, some friends who have pets, or some pet groups, or, I know I have a dog park near me, something like that, where you can take the product out to a dog park and test them out there. Where are you thinking? Yes, neighborhood pets. Yes. So if you have like a dog park or some sort of, pets area, excuse me, near you, that's a wonderful place to test it out, for sure. Are you in the prototyping stage of your product, Augusta? How far along are you in the prototyping stage? Early development. Okay, great. I mean, even if you just have a drawing, that's also sufficient. Just having a drawing is also sufficient. Yeah, you don't have to have it fully developed in order to test it out with real users. It could be just a drawing. Okay. So this has been great. Oh, great. Yes. Thank you, Augusta. So yeah, don't wait to have the product fully developed. You can go ahead and test it out, even if it's just a drawing. Again, use your resources like Fiverr to get the concept drawn out, and then show that to as many pet owners as possible, and develop a short form with maybe 5 to 10 questions, around the product idea and the problem, that you're intending to solve. Making sure that you gather that information, to make sure that users or potential customers can help you to validate your idea. Thank you for joining us, Augusta. I appreciate your time. Thank you. All right. So, Tom, I think we're finished for tonight. And I thank you all for having me. Appreciate your time. This has been great. And again, I'd love to do this again in person, where Tiffany and I can join you guys in person to validate ideas in person with everybody who's attending. Thank you all. Okay. Good night, everybody.